Welcome, everybody, to Unified Champion Spotlight. My name is Craig Tornquist, and I got an awesome job. I get to interview the stars of the inclusion revolution. And today, we're going to go down to IPS, which is Indianapolis Public Schools. And I'm going to call this group the Fab Four of Unified Sports in IPS. And they are here today. They're each in their own way doing great things with Unified Sports in the central Indiana area, and I'm looking forward to visiting with each one of them. If you would just smile and wave when I call your name so people can put a name and a face together. Shane Wilson is here today. Lauren Wagner is here. Chris Boylan. And batting cleanup is Matthew Bradley today. And I want to start off with Shane. Shane, I'm going to throw a spotlight on you here so we can see you, your good-looking face up close. Shane, first of all, thank you for joining us today. Yes. You are the Learning Community Director of Innovation Schools in IPS. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
What does that mean?
So the role is a new role this year, actually. So historically, I've supported our non-public schools from a special education perspective, and then I've supported our itinerant team, which is all of our low incident disability teachers that support students throughout the district. And so some of my role changes and my shift this year has now included supporting our innovation schools. There's different pathways that our schools can go into to essentially be a part of our portfolio of schools within IPS, and ultimately what it comes down to is we've got kiddos that need support in our buildings. And so from kind of a central office standpoint, being able to coordinate some of the technical stuff that comes along with special education and supporting teachers and supporting staff with implementation of IEPs. And so that's kind of where my focus is right now.
Well, I know you have a long history with special education, and your history with Special Olympics goes back at least 15 years. Is that right?
Yes. So really my grandfather was an athletic director. My dad was a special education administrator. My mom was a business teacher. So education has kind of always been a part of my life. My dad coached football as well for many years. And so I grew up on the football field. And then I went to college and didn't do anything with education because I thought I wanted to go in a different direction. And so ultimately kind of got back to my roots when I was in Chicago, started working in special recreation with the park district there, which really is a big part of that is working with Special Olympics and working with the young athletes programming. And really that's when I decided to go back to school to get my master's in special education and really focus in on kind of marrying my two, I guess my wife is not going to be excited about this, but marrying two of my passions of sports and education. And I think that's what has really drawn me to Special Olympics, is that it really does a great job of bringing those two together. And then Unified Sports in particular really brings that kind of, from an inclusion standpoint, really is the guiding light for all of us of making sure that our athletes can compete with their peers. And so kind of reverse the second here, but yeah, I think I volunteered at a weightlifting Special Olympics event that was like that 15 years ago, and that's really changed the course of my career, just being a part of it on the outside, and then now being fortunate enough to be a part of it in this capacity now. So.
Well, for people that are watching that don't know the difference between Unified Sports and traditional Special Olympic sports, can you kind of explain what the difference is between the two?
Yeah, so so specifically for IPS, what kind of the culmination of our Unified Sports for our younger athletes is that we have a unified game day that we hold each year in May. And so what that is a track and field event where special education students with special needs get to compete with their peers. And so our athletes are practicing and preparing with their peers prior to that. So that's a big part of kind of creating that culture of inclusion within our school environments, and then ultimately bringing multiple schools together for game days at the end of the year, where everybody gets to compete and everybody gets to um, compete together. Sorry.
Well, who benefits most from unified sports?
I mean, you could make a case for just about everybody that's been involved with it. I mean, from an athlete perspective, our athletes get that exposure, practicing with their peers and competing with their peers. From our peers' standpoint, being able to help and guide and be a role model for students is a great just social emotional capacity that they're building there, and then from all the stakeholders, from volunteers and folks that are PE teachers and our coaches and everybody that gets that opportunity to either be a part of the game day or be a part of practices, really is changing lives, and that's really cool to see from that perspective.
And this all started at the elementary level in IPS in 2017. Is that right?
That's correct.
So you lost last spring because of COVID, but the year prior to that, in 2019, how many elementary schools participated in IPS?
So for this, and it's really sad. You brought up that we had a great couple of days planned for the spring, where we had 20 schools that were signed up. Each year that we've had since 2017, we brought in more schools, and so we've added numbers and added schools each year. So it's really grown. We had some really fun stuff planned for the spring, where we connected with some of our drumline and bands to be able to bring out with the torch walk and some of those things. So I'm really excited to implement some of those things going forward. But yeah, the last couple of years where we've had our 4 game days each May, we've been able to I think our numbers started right around like 10 to 15, and then we've grown each year to that 20 mark this year, and really continuing to look to grow and hopefully really branch out of not only being able to have the track and field event, but branching out into other sports and being able to really grow from where we've started right now.
Do you have a favorite moment that you think of when you think of these unified track and field days, where you thought, I am so glad I was here to see that? What I just saw, that was awesome. Is there a moment like that sticks in your mind?
Absolutely. I mean, there's as my role has changed over the last couple of years. When I first came to Indianapolis, I was with a school, the innovation school that's called Ignite Achievement Academy, and so was really close with a lot of our students and staff there, and they've competed each year as part of the Unified Game Days. So seeing some of those kiddos grow over the last few years, and seeing some of our really probably just, I mean, I can't name just one, but from a parent perspective, I mean, I've seen a lot of tears, because you see just the joy factor that comes from a competition standpoint, being able, having that opportunity, which may not have presented itself before, to be able to get out there and compete against your peers. It just, I think it's overwhelming sometimes for parents, and I think it's really cool to see, because I think you from our perspective, I mean, it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of hard work from the parent perspective, but when it all comes together, it is overwhelming, and it's fun to see those emotions come out. So.
That's great. That's very cool. All right, we're going to go to Lauren next. Lauren, if you want to unmute yourself, I'm going to spotlight you. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am good. Now, Lauren, according to the file that I have for you, you're the primary life skills teacher at Thomas Gregg School 15, and you are a Special Olympics advocate, well, most of your life. Your mom is the county coordinator for Special Olympics Indiana for Benton County. Is that right?
Correct.
How long has she been doing that?
for most of her life.
So this
And
was, you grew up with it then. This is your whole childhood was raised in and around Special Olympics.
yes, the story she will tell is that I was in her belly at one of the first Special Olympics World Games. So I've been doing it ever since then.
Now let's do some math here. Which World Games was that?
Oh, you would ask me that. Well, I actually just turned 33 yesterday, so I was born in
Very good.
87.
Okay, you're good. You're good. So, and you've been a coach, you've grown up with it, and you coached track and field and bowling. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Through the years, my mom has done many other sports. When they had rhythmic gymnastics, she did that. So I've been exposed to many of the different sports. But track and field and bowling are the two big ones that I attended practices for when I still lived close and could attend. But I still make sure every year to make it to every big event. So.
And what, as a coach, what did you learn from the athletes that you work with on a regular basis?
Oh man, I would say there's just so much I could talk about it for hours, but I'd say the two things that stick out to me the most are just seeing how much perseverance and compassion from athletes. It's not even really something that you can describe unless you've experienced it for yourself. I mean, it's just like Shane was saying, it's just a total emotion and feeling. I've very rarely come across any event with Special Olympics athletes where there's not dancing and singing and just pure joy. I've seen athletes get 8th place and be just as ecstatic as an athlete who gets 1st place. So, I mean, I've seen so much hard work and the effort from that just pay off at these big events where they all get to come together. The true picture of a good sportsman, like good sportsmanship.
That's great. So you've been involved with Unified Track and Field in IPS since 2017. How have you seen Unified Track and Field impact your students?
So around that time was kind of the peak of shifting, specifically at our school, as far as inclusion and what that kind of looked like. And the teacher that I had working with me at the time, we were just really pushing to get our kids included more. We were trying to come up with clubs or activities to do with peers. And then here came Special Olympics with this unified idea. And I had been wanting to get, because I have younger kids, them involved in this sport that I already love. And, we have a lot of parents that can't transport places. And so this was just like the perfect solution at the perfect time, something we could do during the day with each other. We recruited, I think, 30 kids the first year. We had so many peers that wanted to do it, which was great. My kids were so enthusiastic about it. They loved just making instant friends. And I just loved seeing the relationships develop between the peers and the athletes, saying hi to each other in the hallway, wanting to eat lunch together, wanting to play at recess. I would have so many peers come up to me who didn't even know me before, and they would say, when are we doing practice? When are we doing that Special Olympics thing? So just to see how much it's evolved from, peers typically thinking, oh, I'm going to come in your classroom and I'm just going to be a helper, to, oh, wow, your student can run really fast. Okay, I want to run against them and see if I can beat them. So just that friendly competition aspect as well.
Did you describe the spirit of the Special Olympics events that you love? Has unified sports in IPS captured that same flavor? I mean, do you feel like you're at one of those events when you're at a unified track and field day?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, last year we had to cancel, and that was one of the first things. I don't think anyone knew that we would still be in this place today, but when we canceled school in the spring, that was one of the first things my kids asked about was, do we not get to do Special Olympics now? But the 2 years that we did get to do it, the first year was as close to the Special Olympics state track meet as it could be. I mean, we had opening ceremonies, we said the oaths, we had practiced them so many times. We did a little torch run, not with real flames, but
Yeah.
The second year we got rained out, so we had to be inside, but like the same spirit carried over towards that. So yeah, I would say it's the same spirit, the same emotion and feeling.
What's one of your favorite moments from Unified Track?
I had to think about this a lot because it's all my favorite, but I'd say there are two things that stick out to me, both from the first year we did it. It was just very overwhelming emotionally. We had one of our first grade classes walk down to the track. It's like a few blocks away from our school where we were competing. And they surprised us, and they all had signs made for all their friends. And it was just so cute to see them all sitting in the stands and cheering for us. And then my students who typically use wheelchairs were able to participate in races with their friends, and they got to choose who walked with them or ran with them. And so just to see the joy on their faces, like, oh my gosh, I get to go really fast, and it's not with an adult. It's with somebody my age who I'm friends with. That was just really, that touched my heart.
That's beautiful. Very good. Thank you very much. All right, next up is Chris Boylan, and I'm going to pull Chris up here. Hello, Chris. I enjoyed visiting with Chris a little bit before we started recording here today. And Chris, according to my notes, you're the life skills team lead at George Washington High School. You're the head coach for Unified Flag Football, the head coach for Unified Track and Field. And you were telling me you've been involved with the special needs community for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Give or take. Yeah, well, I did the math. You were pretty close. So you were involved with, you've been involved with Unified Track and Field and IPS since 2017, and I think you were coach of the first team. Is that right?
That is correct. We were the very first varsity unified track team in the district, and one of the first, I think there maybe was 2 or 3 other schools in the county that I think were maybe the year ahead of us. So we were right there at the kind of the whole beginning of the IHSAA unified track movement.
Why did you want to start this?
You know, life has a funny way of kind of falling in your lap sometimes. I had heard about it, and our AD kind of came up to me and said, hey, it actually kind of started, of all things, as a Title IX conversation is how it really got started of, hey, we need some more opportunities for kids here. You know, we've got the big sports, and this came across as I said, hey, what do you think about this? And I said, well, let me go look at it. So I looked online, kind of like, yeah, I think this is something that we could actually really, would it be a lot of fun and something that we could really be competitive and get behind. So it kind of, just was a matter of I had an AD that was really on board and said, hey, let's do this. What do we need to do? And kind of got the ball rolling.
Well, you've coached several teams now between the sports, several unified teams. What are some qualities that you think a successful unified coach should have?
Patience, I think, is first and foremost. I think as any of us that have coached outside of Unified, because I also was a varsity softball coach for a number of years, you do have to show a little more patience because you're like, okay, maybe they aren't going to pick it up as quickly, or the beautiful mistakes is like, I like to look at those moments where something doesn't quite go as planned, but the personalities, be just open to a lot of that. I also would say a quality that I think makes a good coach with this is you have to look beyond the disability, and you look at them, they are kids and young adults first, period. They just happen to have a disability with it. I mean, that's just the way it is. But you treat them as young adults. You don't treat them as a disability. You don't treat them as little kids. Like for us, these are young adults. And if I expect the same thing as any other varsity team, you should expect the same thing with a unified team. They show up to practice. They need to go to class. They have to do anything any other varsity athlete does. And I think as a coach, you have to be willing to hold them to those same standards. If not, you're doing a very disservice and not acting in the spirit of what this is all about.
Well, I wondered about that. I wondered, do you lower your expectations? And it sounds like absolutely not. You're not helping anybody by doing that.
If anything, I am probably, my kids will probably tell you, I'm probably tougher on them than most people because they know I expect a lot of them.
Can you give me an example of one of those beautiful mistakes that you've witnessed firsthand?
So I had a young lady, we were running the 400 meters, and she was coming around the fourth turn, had probably a good 10-meter lead on third place. And the girl right in front of her falls down. And out of the kindness of her heart, she stops. Are you okay? I mean, just, it's like, oh, bless your heart, sweetheart. And at that point, by the time we're like, Ashley, run, the race is still going on. She ended up finishing like 7th or 8th place out of the whole thing. But the beautiful part to it, besides her caring heart, was as she picked the other girl up and they finished the race. I was very proud of them. They finished the race. And she picks the girl up and they run down the straightaway together. And everybody in the stadium stopped what they were doing and cheered them on as they came running down the straightaway. And to me, it was just one of those beautiful moments of this is what sports is supposed to be about. This was the essence of why we do this and what it should be about. That's great.
You strike me though as being somewhat competitive. Are the students on your team, do they prefer to win?
I think it's always that philosophy of why do you play a game? I mean, you play a game to win. I mean, that's always, and I always tell the kids that, like, do I want to win? Especially like with flag football? Absolutely. I mean, I would love to go undefeated and win every game we ever play. But I always go back to, though, no matter what happens, guys, I might not like some of the stuff we did out there today. I still like you. And, at the end of the day, did you try your best? Yeah? Okay, then I can live with that. That's perfectly fine. So
I can see why you're a successful coach. Very good. Very good. All right. We've saved the big finish here. All the pressure's on him. You're the anchor man here. All right, Matthew. Matthew,
Thanks.
This is Matthew Bradley. And Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, you are a life skills teacher at Crispus Attucks High School. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you are the unified flag football coach and the unified track coach. Is that true?
Yes.
So you are a rival of Chris's.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, I usually ask him questions because he's been doing it a little bit longer, so.
Okay. So you defer to the wisdom of his years and turn to him for advice and counsel?
Yep, and then I steal some stuff along the way, so.
Very good. Well, Matthew, you are a coach. What are some of the life lessons that you are trying to instill in the athletes on your teams?
For me, the big thing is like teamwork. A lot of our kids might have different skills and talents that they'll use. So try to put those together to show everybody, like show the team and the kids, like, like so-and-so is good at this, so let's use that. So I try to use the teamwork aspect of like, hey, we can do this if we come together. And I would say the second thing is it's that, I think a lot of our kids have never played an organized sport, or if they've done it, it's been a very long time. So like teaching them that, like, when you work hard, it doesn't always end up being a win and having fun. Sometimes there's some disappointment. And I think trying to teach them how to deal with that disappointment of like not winning the game. It's for us, like we had a game last week and it happened, there was a moment one of those kids was just really upset about, not playing well or losing. And it's like, well, look, it's cool, man. Like, did you do well? Okay. Yes, you did well. Like, can we get better? Yes, we can get better. And just being okay with, like, it's not always, like you said, winning and losing. It's, if you won, great. If not, then like, what can we do to win next time? So.
You've coached teams that are unified, and you've coached other teams as well. The jacket there says Christmas Addicts Girls Basketball. Are you the coach of that team as well, or have you been in the past?
I was in the past, yeah.
So how has coaching a unified team impacted you personally?
I think for me, it's seeing like the pride and the recognition they feel like when they go out there. So, you know, last year was our first year. So a big thing was like when we had our jerseys on, they were like kind of strutting around the school, like, "Hey man, what's up? You know, I play football here," and or flag football or whatever. And I think, you know, it's like they take pride like in themselves and in the school too. Like, you know, the big thing is like for inclusion. And so when we're not being included, or when they don't have the opportunity to play like a sport like football or basketball or track, you know, but they can do it for unified, it totally changes their outlook on the school and what they're able to do for the school.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Do you have a favorite moment from a unified event that you have been involved with?
Man, you know, I was thinking about that, and I like 3 or 4 came to my mind. I'll tell you just a couple. The first is like we were in playing last year in our sectional game, and you're not allowed to spin with the ball. So you're we had one of the kids caught a pass. I think it might have been the first pass he caught all season, and he had to have spun like 3 or 4 times and got a touchdown, and they didn't call it. And like you could have like he thought it was the best thing in the whole world. I mean, you know, the next, like, because it was on a Saturday, so Monday came and he was like, "Hey man, I scored a touchdown. I was like juking guys," and like it just like blew up, and it was just totally cool to see that like that one moment for him was like the biggest thing. And then we lost the game, you know, like he had that was the coolest thing he did like all month. And then one of our games this year, we had an away game, and one of our kids had like you know, he was out there having fun, and he always asked after the game, he's like, "Did we win?" So he doesn't even realize like if it's, you know, 100-2 or, you know, vice versa. He's just out there having fun, and he's just ready to keep playing. Like he's always like, "Is it the end?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the end, man. Sorry." You know, and like he's happy no matter what because he gets to play, and he's, you know, excited to like do better, like because he's always coming to practice asking what he can do. So for me, that's like been the biggest impact for me, doing flag football or flag unified sports.
Those are great stories. All of you, those are great stories. Last question, and I'm just going to throw this out to any of you. If there is someone in IPS right now that says, "Man, I'm kind of intrigued by what you all are doing," how can they learn more about this to bring it to their school if it's not already in their school? Who's the best one to field that question?
I'd say just talk to if you're in the high school, just talk to like Matt and I. I know we have a lot of experience with it. Like Matt said, text back and forth. Him and I've had a lot of conversations. Just, hey, do I have to have uniforms for this? And just all those. There's so many little things I think that people forget about with coaching. That, hey, do you remember to have this? Did you remember to grab your belts? Did you remember, hey, don't forget water bottles? Did you remember to grab your roster list? Or even something as simple as having to build your schedule.
Yeah.
Hey, call this AD. Hey, they're looking for games. Hey, this group has a unified program. They're looking for some stuff. Which got me thinking, actually, there was one quick story if I can share with you.
Absolutely.
One of the challenges that we kind of faced when we started was getting people to recognize us as a varsity sport. They heard unified, they heard Special Olympics. Oh, it's Special Olympics. No, we are a varsity sport. We are same as basketball, football, any of the other teams. We are a varsity team. And one of the moments where I think for one of my parents, it really hit home for them was at the end of the season, we had a big spring awards banquet, and they all got invited to that banquet. She's like, "Is this really for us?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're a varsity team." And to watch her face when her son walked across the stage there and got his varsity letter for participating, He's like, yes, he's really a varsity athlete. He got that letter. We had to hand her Kleenex. She started crying. She's like, I never really saw him outside of your classroom like this. And it was just such a powerful, he's a high school kid. At the end of the day, I keep going back to that. These are high school young adults, not a disability. And I think one of the powers of unified sports at the varsity level, it really brings that to the forefront. And it's powerful to see that they're treated like any other kid. These are high schoolers, so.
That's what it's all about. This is cool. Any other final thoughts that you all want to share?
I would just say
Somebody else who I would recommend them getting in touch with is Darren, who's the district athletic director. If you really are interested, get with their AD, get with Darren. Because I will applaud IPS, and I'll say this in the recording. When you talk to other coaches around the state, IPS really was very forward thinking, where I remember going to those first unified varsity meets. And, you always, coaches, we talk, we do. And so many of the schools were volunteer, or it was seen as a club. And they really, I'm like, no, I get paid as a varsity coach.
Yeah.
And that's one thing IPS stepped up very early on, treated us as a varsity team, and we get paid as any other varsity coach does in the district. So it's a very powerful statement.
Yes, Lauren.
I was just going to defer and say that in general, IPS involvement, I would say go to Shane. Since he's been involved with it, I mean, he is so organized. He has all the information. He can point you to the right people. As far as like at the younger level, I'm very passionate about getting kids involved early, because what I have seen through my years is we have a lot of older athletes, and that's great. But what happens when those older athletes aren't able to compete anymore? We need to get the younger kids involved. So I'm more than happy to, answer any questions about getting the younger kids involved. And if I don't know the answer, I am not afraid to find out who does. I will email Jeff himself. So.
And he'll be glad to get that email.
Thanks,
Shane,
Lord.
do you have a thought?
Yeah, I just would say from a not a high school perspective, like absolutely, like we'll be reaching out to our principals here in this first semester just to confirm participation again for the schools that have participated the last few years. But ultimately, as we said before, like we're really trying to grow from pre-K up, getting as many kiddos involved as possible. And so reach out to your principals to see if there's already programming that's going on. And then Craig, I can share a list with you of the schools that already are competing. And I know we shared a video with you of a couple years ago when we had our unified track and field meet. So I think reaching out and finding the right folks, and we're here to help with any questions that you have. So.
The motto of Champions Together is servant leadership, changing lives, and you four absolutely personify that. I mean, your history in this goes back long before unified sports really exploded here in Indiana, but because you brought that experience and your passion together, there are just so many wonderful things going on, and it's great to hear what's happening in IPS right here, right in the middle of the state. So thank you, Shane Wilson, Lauren Wagner, Chris Boylan, and Matthew Bradley for your leadership and your enthusiasm. It is absolutely contagious, and I look forward to seeing all of you at a unified event, hopefully this school year. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.